A bloke at a disco asked a girl up for a dance. They danced together for a few minutes. The record, yes, it was in those days, ended and the next one started up. The girl stayed on the floor, so the bloke, because he fancied her, thought he should start a conversation to show her he was interested. They were dancing a few feet apart, and he said, "You smell lovely. What have you got on?" She replied, "It's Estee Lauder." The guy said, "Oh, that's really nice." The record finished and the next one began. The girl thought the guy had potential, so she said to him, "If you don't mind me asking, what have you got on?" To which he replied, "Well, as a matter of fact, I've got a hard-on, but I didn't think you could smell it from there." As you lie back, your muscles tighten. You put him off for a while, searching for an excuse, but he refuses to be swayed as he approaches you. He asks if you're afraid, and you shake your head bravely. He has had more experience, but it's the first time his finger has found the right place. He probes deeply, and you shiver. Your body tenses, but he's gentle like he promised he'd be. He looks deeply within your eyes and tells you to trust him. He's done this many times before. His cool smile relaxes you, and you open wider to give him more room for an easy entrance. You begin to plead and beg him to hurry, but he slowly takes his time, wanting to cause you as little pain as possible. As he presses closer, going deeper, you feel the tissue give way. Pain surges throughout your body, and you feel the slight trickle of blood as he continues. He looks at you concerned and asks you if it's too painful. Your eyes are filled with tears, but you shake your head and nod for him to go on. He begins going in and out with skill, but you are now too numb to feel him within you. After a few moments, you feel something bursting within you, and he pulls it out of you. You lay panting, glad to have it over. He looks at you and, smiling warmly, tells you with a chuckle that you have been his most stubborn yet most rewarding experience. You smile and thank your dentist. After all, it was your first time having a tooth pulled. Naughty, naughty, excuse me, what were you thinking? A drover walks into a bar with a pet crocodile by his side. He puts the crocodile up on the bar and he turns to the astonished patrons and says, "I'll make you a deal. I'll open the crocodile's mouth and put my manhood inside, and then the crocodile will close its mouth for 1 minute. He will then open his mouth, and I'll remove my unit unscathed. In return for witnessing this spectacle, each of you will buy me a drink." The crowd murmured their approval. The drover stood up on the bar and dropped his trousers. He placed his manhood in the crocodile's mouth. The crocodile closed its mouth, and the crowd gasped. After a minute, the drover grabbed a beer bottle and smacked the crocodile really, really hard on the top of its head. The croc opened its mouth, and the drover removed his genitals unscathed as promised. The crowd cheered, and the first of his free drinks was delivered. He stood up again and said, "I'll pay anyone £100 who's willing to give it a try." A hush fell over the crowd. After a while, a hand went up at the back of the bar. A blonde woman timidly spoke up. "I'll try it, but don't hit me so hard with the bottle." An elderly man had dinner at a very nice restaurant. After he finished his wine, he went to the men's room, then walked out through the bar. It was a beautiful evening, so he decided to leave his car in the car park and walk home. When he arrived at his front door, he realized he didn't have his keys. He finally figured they must be in his jacket pocket, which was still hanging in the restroom. He walked back to the restaurant, found his jacket in the men's room, and realized he'd left his hat on the table. He strolled back to the dining room to retrieve his hat, and when he got to his table, his wife asked, "Is anything wrong? You took such a long time in there." A young man buys a chicken farm out in the country. He doesn't know much about chickens, so he decides to go consult with some of the locals. He finds an old farmer and asks if he might be able to give him some pointers. The old farmer tells him, "Sure, meet me here at 6 a.m. tomorrow and I'll show you the ropes." The young man gets up and meets the old farmer the next morning and is surprised to find him waiting outside his chicken coop with a three-piece suit on, including a top hat, cane, monocle, and even spats. The young man is baffled but decides to play along and say nothing. They enter the chicken coops, and the young man is immediately attacked by a group of 20, 30 chickens. They peck at his feet, fly up to claw at his body, and beat him with their wings. After about 30 seconds of this, the young man runs off out of the coop. He turns around and sees the old farmer standing there calmly, not a chicken even paying him a second glance. The young man says, "That was crazy. They were all over me and they didn't even touch you." The old farmer says, "Lesson one, young man, whenever you deal with chickens, you've got to dress impeccably." A woman was standing in front of the window in the maternity wing looking at her newborn baby when another new mom walked up beside her. She pointed at a baby and said, "Is that your baby boy there?" The first woman replied, "Why, yes, it is." The second woman then pointed at a baby boy beside it and said, "That's my third child. We named him Beauregard Winston Baldwin III after his great-great-great-grandfather, the famous Confederate general." "That's nice," said the first woman. The woman kept talking. "My husband is buying me a 4-carat diamond ring to celebrate his birth." "That's nice," said the first woman again. "When my second child was born, he gave me a brand new Mercedes-Benz and took me to Tuscany for the summer," she bragged again. "That's nice," repeated the woman. "And when I birthed our first child, my husband bought a yacht, named it after me, and we sailed round the world," she continued. "That's nice," said the first woman again. "Is this your first child? What did your husband buy you?" asked the second woman. The first woman turned to her and said, "When we found out I was pregnant, my husband sent me to charm school." "Charm school?" the second woman asked incredulously. "Why?" "Yes, well," the woman said, "that's where I learned to say 'that's nice' instead of 'who gives a A psychiatrist conducted a group therapy session with 4 mothers who have obsessions. To the first mother, he says, "You are obsessed with eating and even named your daughter Candy." He turned to the second mother and said, "You're obsessed with money and you named your child Penny." He turns to the third mother and says, "Your obsession is alcohol and you named your child Brandy." At this point, the fourth mother gets up, takes her little boy by the hand and said, "Come on, we're leaving." There were 2 old maid sisters, both virgins. It's Friday night and Gladys looks at Betty and says, "I'm not going to die a virgin. I'm going out and I'm not coming home till I've been laid." Betty says, "Well, make sure you're home by 10 so I don't worry about you." 10 o'clock rolls around and there's no sign of Gladys. 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock. Finally, just after 1, the front door flies open. In runs Gladys, straight to the bathroom. Betty goes and knocks on the door. "Are you okay, Gladys?" No answer, so she opens the door, and there sits Gladys with her panties around her ankles, legs spread, and her head stuck between her legs, looking at herself. "What is it, Gladys? What's wrong?" asks Betty. "Betty, it was 10 inches long when it went in and 5 when it came out. When I find the other half, you're going to have the time of your life." A man and his wife were celebrating 50 years together. Their 3 kids, all very successful, all agreed to a Sunday dinner in their honor. "Happy anniversary, Mom and Dad," gushed son number 1. Sorry I'm running late. I had an emergency at the hospital with a patient, you know how it is, and didn't have time to get you a gift." "Not to worry," said the father. "The important thing is that we're all together today." Son number 2, a lawyer, arrived and announced, "You and Mom look great, Dad. I just flew in from Los Angeles between cases and didn't have time to shop for you." "It's nothing," said the father. "We're glad you were able to come." Just then, the daughter, a marketing executive, arrived. "Hello and happy anniversary. I'm sorry, but my boss is sending me out of town and I was really busy packing, so I didn't have time to get you anything." After they finished dessert, the father said, "There's something your mother and I have wanted to tell you for a long time. You see, we were very poor. Despite this, we were able to send each of you to university. Throughout the years, your mother and I knew we loved each other very much, but we just never found the time to get married." The 3 children gasped and all said, "You mean we're bastards?" "Yes," said the father, "and tight ones at that." A little boy goes shopping with his mother and is waiting right outside of the ladies' dressing room for his mom to come out. While waiting, the little boy gets bored, and just when his mom comes walking out, she sees her son sliding his hand up a mannequin's skirt. "Get your hand out of there!" she shouts. "Don't you know that women have teeth down there?" The little boy quickly snatches his hand away and thanks his lucky stars he didn't get bitten. For the next 10 years, this little boy grows up believing all women have teeth between their legs. When he's 18, he gets a girlfriend. One night, while her parents are out of town, she invites him over for a little action. After an hour of making out and grinding on the sofa, she says, "You know, you could go a little further if you want." "What do you mean?" he asks. "Well, why don't you put your hand down there?" she says, pointing to her crotch. "Hell no!" he cries. "You've got teeth down there." "Don't be ridiculous," she responds. "There are no teeth down there." "Yes, there are," he says. "My mom told me so." "No, there aren't," she insists. "Here, look for yourself." With that, she pulls down her pants and gives him a little peek. "No, I'm sorry," he says. "My mom already told me that all women have teeth down there." "Oh, for crying out loud," she cries and says, "Look, I don't have any teeth down there." The boy takes a good long look and replies, "Well, with the condition of those gums, I'm not surprised." Dave was excited about his new .338 rifle and decided to try bear hunting. He traveled up to Alaska, spotted a small brown bear, and shot it. Soon after, there was a tap on his shoulder, and he turned around to see a big black bear. The black bear said, "That was a very bad mistake. That bear was my cousin. I'm going to give you two choices. Either I maul you to death, or we have..." After considering briefly, Dave decided to accept the latter alternative. So the black bear had his way with Dave. Even though he felt sore for 2 weeks, Dave soon recovered and vowed revenge. He headed out on another trip to Alaska, where he found the black bear and shot it dead. Right after, there was another tap on his shoulder. This time, a huge grizzly bear stood right next to him. The grizzly said, "That was a big mistake, Dave. That bear was my cousin, and you've got two choices. Either I maul you to death, or we have rough..." Again, Dave thought it was better to cooperate with the grizzly bear than be mauled to death. So the grizzly had his way with Dave. Although he survived, it took several months before Dave fully recovered. Now Dave was completely outraged, so he headed back to Alaska and managed to track down the grizzly bear and shoot it. He felt sweet revenge, but then, moments later, there was a tap on his shoulder. He turned around to find a giant polar bear standing there. The polar bear looked at him and said, "Admit it, Dave, you don't come here for the hunting, do you?" A young Chinese couple gets married. She's a virgin. Truth be told, he is a virgin too, but she doesn't know that. On their wedding night, she cowers naked under the sheets as her husband undresses in the darkness. He climbs into bed next to her and tries to be reassuring. "My darling," he whispers, "I notice you first time and you are very frightened. I promise you, I give you anything you want. I do anything, just anything you want, you just ask." "What you want," he says, trying to sound experienced and worldly, which he hopes will impress her. A thoughtful silence follows, and he waits patiently and eagerly for her request. She eventually shyly whispers back, "I want to try something I've heard about from other girls. Number 69. More thoughtful silence from him. Eventually, in a puzzled tone, he asks her, "You want garlic chicken with fried rice?" 3 technicians guys go into an interview for a job at the local telephone company. They were all 3 great candidates and very well qualified. The boss brings them into the office and says, "Okay, you 3 look the best on paper, but I have to know if you have what it takes for the day-to-day work. So I'm going to give you 1 day to impress me. Set as many telephone poles as you can and report back tomorrow." They all 3 go to work setting poles and return the next day to the boss's office. The boss asks one by one how many they set. The first guy set 13. "Wow, 13? That is impressive," the boss tells him happily. The second guy set 9. "Well," said the boss, "not as good as the first guy, but still it is impressive." He turns to the third guy. "How many did you set?" the boss asks. 2, the man replies triumphantly, his blonde hair waving in the wind. 2? That's it?" The manager was shocked. "That's barely any. What were you doing all day?" "Well, I didn't want to have to be a snitch, but these other guys, they only put theirs halfway in the ground." This is what happens when your child is exposed to too many commercials on TV. A Baptist pastor was presenting a children's sermon. During the sermon, he asked the children if they knew what the resurrection was. Now, asking questions during children's sermons is crucial, but at the same time, asking children questions in front of a congregation can also be very dangerous. Having asked the children if they knew the meaning of the resurrection, a little boy raised his hand. The pastor called on him, and the little boy said, "I know that if you have a resurrection that lasts more than 4 hours, you are supposed to call the doctor." It took over 10 minutes for the congregation to settle down enough for the service to continue. A couple took in an 18-year-old girl as a lodger. She asked if she could have a bath, but the woman of the house told her they didn't have a bath, although if she wanted to, she could use a tin bath in front of the fire. "Monday's the best night, when my husband goes out to darts," she said. The girl agreed then to have a bath the following Monday. After her husband had gone to the pub for his darts match, the woman filled the bath and watched the girl get undressed. She was surprised to see that the lass didn't have any pubic hair. She mentioned this to her husband when he came home. He didn't believe her, so she said, "Next Monday, when you go to darts, leave a little early and wait in the back garden. I'll leave a gap in the curtains so you can see for yourself." So the following Monday, while the girl again got undressed, the wife asked, "Do you shave?" "No," replied the girl. "I've just never grown any hair down there. Do you have hair?" "Oh, yes," said the woman, and she pulled up her nightdress and showed the girl that she was most generously endowed in the hair department. The girl finished her bath and went to bed. Later that night, when the husband came in, the wife asked him, "Well, did you see?" "Yes," he said. "But why the hell did you have to show her yours?" "Why are you worried about that?" she said. "You've seen it often enough." "I know," he said, "but the dart team hadn't." A programmer and an engineer are sitting next to each other on a long flight from Los Angeles to New York. The programmer leans over to the engineer and asks if he would like to play a fun game. The engineer just wants to take a nap, so he politely declines and rolls over to the window to catch a few winks. The programmer persists and explains that the game is real easy and is a lot of fun. He explains, "I ask you a question, and if you don't know the answer, you pay me $5. Then you ask me a question, and if I don't know the answer, I'll pay you $5. Again, the engineer politely declines and tries to get to sleep. The programmer, now somewhat agitated, says, "Okay, if you don't know the answer, you pay me $5, and if I don't know the answer, I'll pay you $100. This catches the engineer's attention, and he sees no end to this torment unless he plays, so he agrees to the game. The programmer asks the first question. "What's the distance from the Earth to the moon?" The engineer doesn't say a word, but reaches into his wallet, pulls out a $5 bill, and hands it to the programmer. Now, it's the engineer's turn. He asks the programmer, "What goes up a hill with 3 legs and comes down on 4? The programmer looks up at him with a puzzled look. He takes out his laptop computer and searches all of his references. He taps into the airphone with his modem and searches the net and the Library of Congress. Frustrated, he sends an email to his coworkers, all to no avail. After about an hour, he wakes the engineer and hands him $100. The engineer politely takes the $100 and turns away to try to get back to sleep. The programmer, more than a little miffed, shakes the engineer and asks, "Well, so what's the answer?" Without a word, the engineer reaches into his wallet, hands the programmer $5, and turns away to get back to sleep. A woman takes her lover home during the day while her husband is at work. Her 9-year-old son comes home unexpectedly, sees them, and hides in the bedroom cupboard to watch. Just after getting into bed, the woman's husband also comes home unexpectedly. She tells her lover to hide in the cupboard, not realizing that the little boy is in there. After a little while, the little boy says, "Dark in here." The man, who obviously got a real fright, not expecting to hear anything, let alone from a little boy who says, "Yes, it is." "Boy, I have a football." "Man, that's nice." "Boy, wanna buy it?" "Man, no, thanks." "Boy, my dad's outside." "Man, okay, how much?" "Boy, say 100 pounds. In the next few weeks, it happens again that the boy and the lover are in the cupboard together. Boy, dark in here. "Man, yes it is, boy. I have football boots." The lover, remembering the last time, asks the boy, "Okay, how much this time?" Boy, 500 pounds, man, all sold. A few days later, the boy's father says to the boy, grab your boots and football. Let's go outside and have a game of soccer. The boy says, I can't. I sold my ball and boots. The father asks, how much did you sell them for and to whom? The boy says, to a friend of mine for 600 pounds. The father says, that's a terrible thing to do. Overcharging your friend like that? That's 4 times what they cost when they were new. I'm going to take you to church and make you confess your terrible sin. They go to the church, and the father makes the little boy sit in the confession booth, and he closes the door. The boy says, dark in here. The priest says, don't start that crap again, you little toad. You're in my cupboard now. It is an interview BTW, an officer in a department, and a candidate seeking for job. Here it goes. Officer, what is your name? Candidate MP. Sir Officer, tell me properly. Candidate, Madape Pakurumo. Sir Officer, your father's name. Candidate, MP. Sir Officer, what does that mean? Candidate, Moshud Pakurumo. Sir Officer, your native place. Candidate, MP. Sir Officer, is it Makurdipuram? Candidate, no, Minaport. Sir Officer, what is your qualification? Candidate, MP. Sir Officer, angrily, what is it? Candidate, metric pass. Officer, so why do you need a job? Candidate, MP. Sir Officer, meaning? Candidate, money problem. Sir Officer, what's your personality? Candidate, MP. Sir Officer, would you explain yourself and stop wasting my time? Candidate, monocrotic personality. Officer, I see no wonder. I will get back to you later. Candidate, so sir, how's my MP? Officer, and what's that again? Candidate, my performance. Officer, MP. Candidate, MEANING. Officer, MP, mental problem. Paddy is on holiday in London and staying in a top London hotel. He has a luxury room on the top floor. At 2 a.m., the fire alarms go off and wake Paddy up. He thinks for a moment and decides he'll be safest if he goes out onto his balcony. The first rages through the hotel, but Paddy stands his ground on the balcony, hoping that the fireman's ladder will reach him soon. However, the fire brigade's ladder will not reach the balcony on which Paddy is waiting. The chief fire officer discusses the situation with his number 2, who thinks that their only option is to use the catching blanket. The chief fire officer uses a loudspeaker to tell Paddy their plan. 8 fire officers roll out the catching blanket and hold it off the standard 3 feet of the ground. The fire chief tells Paddy to climb onto the outside of the balcony. He then tells Paddy to fold his arms across his chest and fall backwards from the balcony. Paddy says, you're not getting me like that. The fire officer says, Paddy, this is your only chance of surviving. Paddy says, but you're English, and I know that once I begin to fall, you'll move the blanket. The fire chief says, Paddy, this is your only chance. We will not move the blanket. Paddy says, I don't trust you. Put the blanket on the ground and stand back, then I'll jump. A man was hunting when a gust of wind blew. The gun fell over and discharged, shooting him in the genitals. Several hours later, lying in a hospital bed, he was approached by his doctor. Well, sir, I have some good news and some bad news. The good news is that you are going to be okay. The damage was local to your groin. There was very little internal damage, and we were able to remove all of the buckshot. What's the bad news? Asked the hunter. The bad news is that there was some pretty extensive buckshot damage done to your which left quite a few holes in it. I'm going to have to refer you to my sister. Well, I guess that isn't too bad, the hunter replied. Is your sister a plastic surgeon? Not exactly, answered the doctor. She's a flute player in the Boston Symphony Orchestra. She's going to teach you where to put your fingers so you don't piss in your eye. A teacher trying to teach good manners asked her students the following question. Michael, if you were on a date having dinner with a nice young lady, how would you tell her that you have to go to the bathroom? Michael said, just a minute. I have to go pee. The teacher responded by saying, that would be rude and impolite. What about you, Sherman? How would you say it? Sherman said, I am sorry, but I really need to go to the bathroom. I'll be right back. That's better. But it's still not very nice to say the word bathroom at the dinner table. And you, little Johnny, can you use your brain for once and show us your good manners? Johnny said, I would say, darling, may I please be excused for a moment? I have to shake hands with a very dear friend of mine, whom I hope to introduce you to after dinner. Why I didn't study. A student's master plan teacher. Why didn't you study? Student. Well, let me break it down for you. There are 365 days in a year. After taking away 52 Sundays, we're left with 313 days. Now, factor in the 50 days of summer, way too hot to study, and we're down to 263 days. We sleep 8 hours a day, which adds up to 122 days gone. That leaves 141 days. If I spend just 1 hour a day messing around, that's another 15 days gone, leaving us with 126 days. Eating takes up 2 hours a day, so subtract 30 more days, and we're left with 96. Then, I spend 1 hour each day talking to friends and family, which knocks off another 15 days, leaving us with 81. Exams? They easily take 35 days, so we're down to 46. Then come holidays, about 40 days. And now there are just 6 days left. If I get sick for 3 days, we're down to 3 days. Let's say I go out twice. That leaves me with just 1 day to study. But that day, it's my birthday, and that's why I didn't study. A wife was in the kitchen trying to whip up a nice breakfast of fried eggs for her husband when suddenly he stormed in like a frantic chef on a cooking competition show. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Careful. You're putting in too many eggs. Where's the butter? More butter. Oh my gosh, they're going to stick. Turn them now. She stared at him, mouth agape. Is this a cooking emergency or a fire drill? Seriously, we need more butter. But where are we going to get more butter? Maybe the grocery store? She replied, rolling her eyes. Careful! You never listen to me when you're cooking. I mean, you wouldn't want them to stick, would you? Maybe I'd like to see you try cooking them next time, she shot back. Did you just say next time? Are you crazy? Have you lost your mind? Don't forget to salt them. You know you always forget to salt them. Use the salt! The salt! Finally, the wife snapped. What is wrong with you? You think I don't know how to fry a couple of eggs? He looked at her with a smirk and replied, I just wanted to show you what it feels like when I'm driving. A lady goes to the bar on a cruise ship and orders a scotch with 2 drops of water. As the bartender gives her the drink, she says, I'm on this cruise to celebrate my 80th birthday, and it's today. The bartender says, well, since it's your birthday, I'll buy you a drink. In fact, this one is on me. As the woman finishes her drink, the woman to her right says, I would like to buy you a drink too. The old woman says, thank you. Bartender, I want a scotch with 2 drops of water. Coming up, says the bartender. As she finishes that drink, the man to her left says, I would like to buy you one too. The old woman says, thank you. Bartender, I want another scotch with 2 drops of water. Coming right up, the bartender says. As he gives her the drink, he says, Ma'am, I'm dying of curiosity. Why the scotch with only 2 drops of water? The old woman replies, Sonny, when you're my age, you'll have learned how to hold your liquor. Holding your water, however, is a whole other issue. A young ventriloquist was touring Sweden, and one night, he was doing a show in a small fishing town. With his dummy on his knee, he started going through some of his standard dumb blonde jokes. Suddenly, a blonde woman in the 4th row stood on her chair and started shouting, I've heard enough of your stupid blonde jokes. What makes you think you can stereotype Swedish blonde women that way? What does the color of a woman's hair have to do with her worth as a human being? It's men like you who keep women like me from being respected at work and in the community and from reaching our full potential as people. It's people like you who make others think that all blondes are dumb. You and your kind continue to perpetuate discrimination against not only blondes but women in general, pathetically, all in the name of humor. The stunned ventriloquist started to apologize, but the blonde interrupted and screamed, You stay out of this. I'm talking to that little shit sitting on your lap. A couple had been married for a long time. One day, the husband asked his wife, If I passed away, do you think you would remarry? His wife thought about it and said, It could get very lonely by myself. I may remarry if I meet the right person. The husband appeared forlorn and replied, I just don't like the thought of some idiot sitting on my couch watching my TV and using my tools. Well, said his wife, What makes you think I'd marry an idiot again?